And we're back with a whole 9 yards podcast. We are going to recap the NFL season after week 7. We're going to start off with our first game, Browns at Bengals. It was a very good game. It was in the 1 o'clock window, and it had a lot of interesting plays and moments that happened, especially with the Browns' first possession with Baker Mayfield throwing an interception on his first throw that eventually led to Odell Beckham Jr. getting injured. And as we just found out earlier today, he actually tore his ACL and is going to be out for the season. So it's big news for Cleveland as they are now, I believe, 5-2, maybe 5-2.
Yeah.
So they're right in there for the division. And without Odell, he hasn't been a big part of the offense this year, but he's someone that defenses definitely look to double at all times. So he's a big blow to their offense.
I think for the Browns, you at your ceiling, OBJ is your best receiver and he's the best player on that offense. But as we've seen since this whole Browns thing really started, OBJ just hasn't really been able to be a healthy part of the offense. So, I'm not going to say it's like a blessing in disguise, but hopefully you can get the passing game to be a lot better without him. I think today, if you're a Baker fan, was pretty encouraging. But overall, you still only beat the Bengals by 3 points. They put 34 on your defense. So, maybe not the best day from the Browns defense, but Baker looked great. Nick Chubb will be back. He's obviously a huge part of the offense. So,
yeah, and I think more importantly, I think for the Bengals, I think Joe Burrow looked amazing again. He's been really good this year. He was 35 of 47 for 406 yards, 3 touchdowns. He had 1 interception, but he in that fourth quarter, they were going back and forth between him and Baker. I think the lead changed like 4 or 5 times in that fourth quarter, and I thought the Bengals won the game. They got a touchdown with 1 minute, 6 seconds left. I thought the game was over. Baker made a great throw down the sideline with 11 seconds left for the game-winning touchdown. But really encouraging signs from Joe Burrow, and I think he's only going to get better with that offensive line. He has no protection, but he's been looking really good these last couple of weeks.
I think the Bengals receiving core is actually nice. You have Tyler Boyd, A.J. Green, T. Higgins. Maybe you trade A.J. Green this year, but Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins is still not bad. Hopefully you can get a good O-line for next year. This division is really tough, so I don't know exactly what the Bengals are going to do next year and if they can actually compete or not, but, you have to like what you've seen from Burrow so far. I don't know if he's been the best quarterback this year. Out of that class, probably goes to Herbert. But, Burrow, you'd take this if you were a Bengals fan when you drafted him, how he's played so far.
Yeah, and the division is tough. You have Baltimore, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh with really good defenses and really good pass rushes. So, the pass block is just not going to be there for the Bengals. But I think that, this is a team that is looking to win the division in the next 3 or 4 years, not in the next, 2 to 3 years. So I think they'll be just fine for the future, especially if Burrow keeps playing like this. And you're right, A.J. Green's, most likely not going to be on the team after this year. But I think with Boyd and Higgins, they still have Joe Mixon. I think they'll be just fine.
Yeah, and going back to the Browns just before we get into the next game, as a Browns fan, you really want to see this type of offensive production against a legitimate team. You're 5-2, yes. Playoffs seem pretty likely for the Browns right now, but they really haven't done it against a super legitimate team yet. And they laid an egg against the Ravens and the Steelers. I think they lost 36-7 and 36-6 or something. They got killed both games. So I still don't know what to think about the offense. The defense, Myles Garrett's obviously great. The secondary, I don't know how I feel about it, but if your offense plays at its ceiling and your defense plays okay/well, and Myles Garrett can be the defensive player of the year, then you should make the playoffs, and hopefully you get an easy matchup and don't have to go to Baltimore or to Pittsburgh first round.
Yeah, and that leads us to our next game. We have the Cowboys at the Washington football team. Me being the Cowboys fan here, this was a non-competitive game. It was a game that I thought we actually had a chance of winning.
you never think you're going to lose against the Washington football team. Like, I don't know, they just don't have any players, and losing 25-3, I just don't even know what to think anymore about this team.
I mean, coming off last week's loss against the Cardinals, where it was our biggest home loss, I think, in like 20, 30 years or something like that. It was a terrible game. And I thought this week, playing Washington with Philly next week, I thought we win this game, we would beat Philly next week, we have a bye, and we're looking, that I would say the division's most likely ours if we were to win against Washington and the Eagles. But only one wide receiver caught a ball in that whole game. Amari Cooper, had 7 catches. No other wide receiver even caught a ball. Zeke, they were losing, but you know what? Even though the final score was 25-3, it was only not. It was 8. No, it was 9-3 at the end of the first quarter. So they just never really went to the run. Obviously, their offensive line is not good. Everyone's injured. They only have one starter from last year who's even on the line. They have like 2 rookies and an undrafted free agent who's in his second year. So they had no one on the offensive line. And I think the Washington football team had 6 sacks in the whole game. But really the biggest thing for me is the defense. The Washington football team was the worst rushing team in the NFL coming into this week. And their top rusher of this game, Antonio Gibson, had 128 yards, which is his career high by more than 50 yards. And he beat his career high in the first half. He had 92 yards in the first half. His career high was, I think, 82. Or his game high was 82 in his career, and he had 92 in the first half. So it was a non-competitive game. Once we got that goal line stop on the first drive, I thought we actually had a chance because our defense is so bad. I didn't think we had a chance of stopping them. They were in the inch line. Somehow they didn't score. But then they get a safety right after. Then they get a touchdown off that. So we had nothing going. Dalton got injured. They said he has a concussion, so I don't know if he's going to play next week against the Eagles, which means Ben DiNucci is going to be our quarterback. I think he's a 7th-round pick. But, I would hope that we bring someone in for this game. I don't know. Do you really think that we're going to start Ben DiNucci against the Eagles next week?
You don't have, if Dalton can't go, you don't have a choice. Ben DiNucci's been here for the limited training camp and regular season so far, so you have to assume with his limited knowledge of the playbook that he's more ready to go than some veteran who hasn't played since probably last year at best. So I think Dalton should be back for next week. He really needs to be. Next week against the Eagles is, I don't want to call it a must-win because this division is so bad, but it really feels like a must-win. Going down to 2-6.
I think it's a must-win. If you lose to the Eagles, you have to win out in order to win the division. So
yeah, if you fall to 2-6, you don't even have to win out. If you go 8-8, you probably still win that division. I don't know, maybe you don't, but yeah, it feels like a must-win because going down 2-6, it seems like the locker room is already starting to just resent Mike McCarthy. It seems like this might be his only year as a coach of the Dallas Cowboys. I don't know. Yeah,
depending how it ends up, I think it easily could be his last year or his only year with the Cowboys. But yeah, just I didn't see this coming when I was looking into this year. At the start of this year, I didn't think that we'd be 2-5. There was no possible situation where I could have thought we were 2-5, but with I think the injury to Dak is just showing how important it was. I think we all knew it was important, but I think it's really important over these last 2 games where, we went all the way to Washington to kick a field goal. We didn't even come close to scoring a touchdown. So
yeah. I don't know what you take away from it. Dak definitely is a big missing part. Zeke has just not been good. So you don't have an offensive line that resembles last year's. The defense has been bad. I feel like letting up 25 points to Kyle Allen. It's only 25 points, I guess, but it's Kyle Allen, Antonio Gibson, and Logan Thomas.
That's like giving up 40 to any other team.
I can't even believe this Washington. Logan Thomas, wasn't he? He was drafted as a quarterback, and he converted to a tight end. And you let up 4 receptions for 60 yards and a touchdown against him. Like that's their like second best receiving target.
And his touchdown was a terrible play by Jalen Smith. All he had to do was tackle him, and he somehow missed the tackle.
I
mean,
just I just can't believe how bad the Cowboys are this year. I've never even heard of Antonio Gibson, by the way.
He was I think, third-round pick out of Memphis. But he was a wide receiver who turned into a running back this year. Like, he wasn't even a running back, and he put up 128 in a touchdown.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess even if you're the Giants, are you like trying to win this division? I guess maybe not the Giants, but if you're Washington, you probably are. The Eagles are gonna obviously try. They're probably the favorites at this point.
I think the Eagles are the favorite, but I think if Washington won that game last week against the Giants, I think they'd probably be the favorite, but they lost.
Yeah,
that
they'd
game,
be
so.
3-4 right now. I want to say,
and they
yeah.
would have had 3 division wins.
Yeah.
So, I don't see the Cowboys. I think they probably end up with 5 wins, maybe 6, but I think 5 wins.
I don't even know what to think. Like, I just would be. I don't even. I guess I'm like saying I'd be surprised if they ended up like 5-11, but I guess I really shouldn't be surprised. Somebody has to have at least 7 wins in this division, and I have no idea who it's going to be. If Washington went 7-9, I would be so surprised. I guess the Eagles could go 7-9 if Carson Wentz decides to play well, and
I think
I
this
guess, but-
division's the Eagles' division. I
It
don't see
probably
I don't see Washington getting 5 more wins. I just don't see
I don't
that.
either. I don't either.
I think the Eagles could probably win this at 6-9-1.
That would be
I think that's honestly what this. I think they're gonna win it at 6-9-1.
that would be so I would be the best. I'd hope for that, honestly. And then I'd like to see them play a home game against, like, I don't know, we'll call it like the
They
Saints.
play like the Cardinals maybe or something like that.
Well, what if they played the Saints? Couldn't they play the Saints though as a
could play the
wild card?
Saints, yeah.
Oh my god, that would be so
I
funny.
mean, that'd be ridiculous.
And then the Eagles win that game, and then
the
the Saints.
last time that happened to the Saints, they lost. They
Yeah.
lost to the Seahawks
Yeah.
in 2010.
I would love to hear the Saints fans complain after something like that because everyone's.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I feel like everyone has done since the NFC East has been so bad this year is talk about how it's like stupid that like a 7-9 team can have a home playoff game, but I don't really agree with that. I think if you win your division, you deserve the home playoff game. Like everybody knows every year that you have to win your division to get a home playoff game. Like I get it that maybe the 7-9 team doesn't have the same record as like the 10-6 or 11-5 team that got unlucky, but I just think it's like, tough luck. Like you know what you had to do to win the division, you didn't do it. Like you're going on the road. So now that's what I'm gonna hope for though. I'm gonna hope that the Eagles win at 6-9-1. The Saints go 11-5 and lose the division, and the Eagles beat the Saints in the wild card round.
It's looking like a real possibility that could happen.
It is.
All right. Our next game, we have Steelers at Titans. These are 2 teams that I know you weren't really sold on before these last couple weeks. I've been sold on them. They've been proving to me that they look like legit teams. This was a great game. I thought this game was over. I thought the Steelers were going to blow them out at one point, and they were blowing them out at one point. But the Titans came back. Big Ben had a huge pick in the red zone with, I think it was 2 minutes left. That could have cost them the game. It was like a minute left. The game was over if they kick a field goal, if he just gets the touchdown, anything, the game's over. So that could have been a disaster. But Gostkowski misses the field goal. I know you being a Patriots fan, you probably like to see that. But what were your thoughts on the game?
I mean, first, Gostkowski, people have always thought he's like one of the best kickers in the NFL, at least when he was on the Pats in his like quote unquote prime or whatever. I mean, I just don't agree with that. He's never been that good, but yeah, I mean, watching him miss that field goal is just awesome. It's what he's done when he was on the Pats for so long. Cost us multiple games because it's like he's able to kick in the second quarter, but any kick that actually matters, he's not able to kick. I mean, overall, it's a good game. I'm more sold on both of these teams. Like after watching the game, I still don't know exactly how to feel. The Steelers feel like they just have a tendency to like let teams be in games when they shouldn't be, which I felt like was this game. Like they probably should have just ran away with it, and instead they let the Titans have a chance to send the game into overtime if Gostkowski makes that kick. Big Ben, I mean, he's been better than I potentially thought he was going to be going into this year, but he's still not looked like a top 5 quarterback, really. James Conner, I mean, I don't know, he's okay. I don't know how sold I am on the Steelers. I guess same goes for the Titans. I still just don't know that I mean, here's the thing is, last week or whenever I said that I don't know that I trust Ryan Tannehill to bring his team back when he's down by 10. And that's effectively what he did it in this game. And I guess I should be sold on Tannehill now, even though they technically didn't win that game, but I'm still not sold on Tannehill. I think against maybe a better team or in a bigger moment, I just still don't see him being that quarterback to bring the team back from being down, especially for like a 10-point deficit in the third quarter or fourth quarter. For some reason, I just don't see it. I don't know that their weapons are good enough. Like A.J. Brown's great. Corey Davis is Adam Humphries is like I don't know. Derrick Henry's obviously he's great. But again, like if you're down by 10, you're probably not running the ball that much, especially the later the game gets. So overall, I mean, I'm more sold on both of these teams, but do I think either of these teams have a chance to beat the Chiefs or the Ravens in the playoffs? Probably not. I mean, I guess the Steelers do because it's like a division rival thing. Like anything can kind of happen in those games, but can either of them beat the Chiefs? I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think either of those teams can beat the Chiefs in a playoff game, even if the Chiefs are on the road. I think the Chiefs are just too good. But I think the Ravens, I think both teams can beat. Especially the Steelers. Obviously, they play the Ravens twice a year. They know the Ravens. But I was pretty impressed with the Steelers. I don't think Big Ben has to be a top 5 quarterback for them to win. I think their defense is just so good, and his experience and him being able to make plays when he needs to. I mean, he had 3 picks this game, which he cannot be having 3 picks every game. But I think as long as he could make the right decisions in key moments and have the defense do what they have to do, I think they could definitely get close to a championship game. I mean, like, you're gonna have to play the Chiefs or the Ravens in one of the first 2 rounds, so. I mean, you have to hope that you don't face the Chiefs in one of those rounds, and you hope that you face them in the championship game. But I was pretty impressed with the Steelers, and they really held Henry down. He had 20 rushes for 75 yards. He had a touchdown at the end, a lot of his yards did come near the end. He kind of broke off some runs at the end, but really for the majority of the game, he was pretty quiet. He wasn't doing anything, so I was pretty impressed with the Steelers against the Titans. After Steelers-Titans, we are now going on to Bucks-Raiders. This was a pretty impressive performance by Tom Brady, who has now jumped into the top 5 MVP conversation. I know Drew had him in his top 5, I think a week or 2 ago. I wasn't really on board with that, but I think now with his play these last 2 weeks, I think he's definitely top 5 now. And the Bucks signed Antonio Brown. He didn't even play this game. They already have Godwin, Evans.
Technically, I don't think he can come back until week 9, I want to say.
I think they're on a bye this upcoming week. No, they're not on a bye.
No, they play the Giants on Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
But I believe he cannot come back until week 9. That's what I've seen. So I'm going to assume that he can come back week 9 against the Saints at the very earliest.
Yeah, because he had an 8-game suspension. Right? Yeah. So he can come back week 9, but they play the Giants next week, like you said. That's most likely a win. So, he only adds to their offense. They have Ronald Jones, who's been he was quiet yesterday, but he's been pretty good these last couple weeks. They have Fournette, Godwin, Gronkowski, who's been pretty good these last couple weeks. I think Brady's been targeting him more.
Gronk. Yeah. I mean, sorry to cut you off, but I was so wrong on Gronk because, I mean, it's only been a couple weeks, but I thought he was just done. I thought he was like really there just to block and kind of be like a decoy-ish just because, it's Gronk. But, I mean, he hasn't looked like vintage Gronk, but, I mean, he's played like a top 5 tight end the last couple weeks, probably top 3. If you probably could argue top 3 tight end. I mean, if he continues to play like this, I feel like everything changes, especially with AB. You have Evans, Godwin, AB, Gronk. I mean, that's honestly just that's insane. And that's a lot of mouths to feed. Gronk's not going to be one to complain if he doesn't get a lot of targets. But AB and Mike Evans, like, they feel like to me that they might complain about that. I don't know if it's going to matter to them and if that's going to ruin, like, the locker room chemistry. I hope it doesn't. But if getting into the AB signing, that's like the one thing I kind of worry about is AB ruining that locker room, especially because it's not an organization like the Patriots or like even the Steelers in a sense. It seems like Arians is pretty laid back, and if AB comes and messes up a lot of things, then I don't know if it's going to be able to be repaired.
Well, I don't think he's going to be a problem. One, Brady's there. I mean, the only reason they signed AB was because of Brady, despite what Arians said, where he said that it wasn't Brady, but, I mean, obviously it was. But Arians said if he's not a team player, then we're going to cut him. I mean, it doesn't matter for them. His contract's up to $2.5 million, but I think it's only like $1 million guaranteed, so it doesn't really matter to them. But one thing I will say about Mike Evans, though, he's been very up and down this year. He has 6 touchdowns this year, but he also has games where he has 1 catch for 2 yards. He had a touchdown, but then he had another game, 2 catches, 2 yards, 2 touchdowns. So, I mean, again, he's hitting touchdowns, but then last week against Green Bay, he had 1 catch for 10 yards, and this week he had 2 catches for 37 yards. So I don't know if that's good for them or bad for them, that they're winning these games without Mike Evans really doing anything, or it's bad because, maybe the chemistry's not there. He's had 2 big games, but other than that, he's been pretty quiet this year.
I think that is just Mike Evans. He has a lot of up and down weeks. I think fantasy owners may be able to attest to that, that sometimes he will just not necessarily not show up, but he just won't get the targets.
Yeah,
and some weeks he'll have like a 2 touchdown week and he'll just kind of go off.
One of those owners is me. I have Mike Evans on my fantasy team. So
yeah, I think it's fine. I think even with like Winston back in the day, that he was kind of like that. I didn't watch the Bucks every single week because like who watches the Bucks every single week? But that's kind of how I feel about him. I think somebody like a Godwin and Scotty Miller is going to get more consistent targets, but they're not going to see the red zone targets as much. I think with Gronk, Evans, Godwin, Scotty Miller, AB, I mean, that's just so many targets that I think at this point, I don't know that Brady has any more excuses now. I mean, not that he really did, but I mean, this should be the top offense in the league from here on out. The defense is probably a top 10 defense, and if the defense plays like a top 10 defense, then this team should win the Super Bowl. I think this defense is probably better than Kansas City's defense. It's faster, although Kansas City does have Chris Jones. I think the offense, debatable, but I think if both offenses play to their ceiling, then the Bucks should be better. I just think they have too many people, and if you obviously can't double team everybody. I don't even know if you want to double team one person on this offense. There's just so many there's so many weapons that it's just like, who do you even double team? Like, do you double team Evans? Because at that point, then I'll just throw to Godwin, I'll just throw to AB, and I'll just drive down the field like that.
Yeah, I don't think you can double anyone because, I mean, Godwin's number 1. AB, I mean, like, AB's not what he used to be, but, like, AB's probably a top receiver, like top 20 receiver.
Yeah.
If he's, like, healthy and, like, ready to go. So you can't double anyone. And if Brady's going to keep playing like this, I think they're probably the second best team in the NFC. I would still put Seattle over them just because of Wilson. But I think if they continue to play like this, then I think you'd probably have to put them number 1. But I'd just see a little bit more, maybe another week or two.
I mean, it's only been a week, so, saying they're the best team in the league might be jumping to conclusions. I don't know if I'd put them as the best right now. I don't know that I'd have Seattle as the best right now, just because I just think the defense is just frankly not.
Well, I'm not talking about the league. I'm talking about NFC.
NFC, sorry. I wouldn't have Seattle. I don't even know if I'd have them as the best team in the NFC. It'd probably be either Seattle or Tampa right now. I think right now I might lean Tampa, but I mean, at the end of the year, who really knows? Moving over to Niners, Pats. I mean, I'm a Pats fan. It was just kind of a disgusting show.
Yeah, both our teams did not look good this week. I think your Patriots scored 6 points.
Yeah, we combined for a solid 9 points.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know that I can say the Niners, like, played well. I just feel like Pats are horrible. The first person I'm looking at is Cam Newton. He just played horribly in the Kansas City game. I thought that Hoyer was horrible, and that once Cam Newton comes back, this team's a top 10 team in the NFL. I was wrong. This team looks horrible. They put up 6 points against the 49ers with no Nick Bosa for the year. Cam Newton threw 3 interceptions. The running game, I guess we don't know how the running game was. It was okay, I guess. But, when you're down by a lot, there's really not much you can do in the running game. The receiving core is absolutely horrible. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of Jacoby Myers. I have because I'm a Pats fan. But he was our leading receiver. Rex Burkhead was our second leading receiver. Damiere Byrd was our third. And Edelman, this is something I've said past couple weeks, but he's cooked. He's done. I don't know what to expect from him. I'm not expecting anything from him anymore. The defense didn't look great either. I don't fear this Niners offense too much. Our defense just didn't look like they wanted to play. I feel like after the Niners got into a lead, the defense just stopped playing. I think there was a play, it was Deebo Samuel. I think he just trucked Devin McCourty, I want to say. And McCourty is one of the best tackling safeties or players in the league, really. I don't know. It just looked like the defense quit. It looks like they don't trust their quarterback. It looks like, they still trust their coach. But I just think that right now our players don't necessarily believe that they're on a good team, which, they're probably not right now. Nick Folk made both of his field goals, which is cool. Props to him, I guess. But, yeah.
Well, I think if there's one positive to take out of the game, I think it's that the Pats made the right decision by not trusting Jimmy Garoppolo for when his time would come. I think it's pretty clear that he's not the guy that they thought he was. At least that Belichick thought he was. Yeah. So, I don't know what you think about him, but I think that maybe it'd be different if he was with Belichick, but he was Shanahan. So
yeah, I wasn't passionate about it, but if you held a gun to my head back in the moment and you said trade Brady or trade Jimmy G, I'm probably trading Brady. But regardless of who they traded, they did it in a horrible manner. I don't want to go too far back, but they could have gotten at least a low first round pick for Jimmy G, but they just waited way too long until Kraft told Belichick, "You're not trading Brady. Trade Jimmy G, get him out of here," so they could only get a second round pick for him. But I thought Jimmy G was going to be the guy in New England. Obviously, I'm probably wrong at this point, unless the Niners get off Jimmy G after this year, and the Pats bring him in. But I don't think that's going to happen. He didn't look great, but he looked better than Newton, to be fair.
Well,
I guess that's not hard to do.
Newton was so bad that anyone would have been better, but even Jimmy wasn't even that much better than him.
Yeah, no, he probably wasn't. I'm just going back to Newton. Newton was horrible. We took Newton out and put Jared Stidham in, and somehow Stidham was even worse. It just doesn't Belichick is probably the greatest coach of all time, and he's obviously the GM of the Patriots, and it just doesn't make any sense to me on why he would be so careless about the quarterback position. All we did nothing. We drafted Stidham in the 4th round. We thought we liked him. We did earlier. And in this year's free agency, we realized, wait, Stidham is not ready to go. So all they did was they waited for free agency to start, and they waited for the last quarterback to be on the market. That happened to be Cam Newton, and they signed him. If it was Dalton, they would have signed Dalton. If it was Winston, they would have signed Winston. It happened to be Newton. We signed Newton. He's looked not great. And I just think that we've been so careless at the quarterback position, not to mention the receiving core has just not been drafted well at all. Running backs are fine, but I just think it's been very careless by Belichick, and I really don't know what to think at this point. Is it even? It probably is still worth trying to win the division. I don't know that you're going to be able to win the division. Buffalo's not looked good the past 2 weeks at all. So I guess that's something good, a positive to take away. But yeah, I hope this team can pick it up. They play the Bills next week, and then after that, they play the Jets. So I mean, you hope you win both of those games. You get to 4-4. I think the Bills game's like a must win. It really is a must win at this point. The Jets, you really should win. Get to 4-4. After that, though, it's a tough stretch of games. You play the Ravens. That's probably a loss. But after that, you get the Texans. So you stay at 500 there at 5-5. You hope you beat the Cardinals. You hope you beat the Chargers. Maybe you probably lose against either the Ram or the Cardinals. Pick one. I don't know. Probably lose one of them, win the other. Dolphins you should beat. Bills you should beat. And the Jets you should beat. So, I mean, hopefully, I think at best you're looking at 10-6, but that's very hopeful. I think something more realistic is 8-8, 9-7. If this team went 7-9, I'd be a little bit surprised, but I definitely wouldn't be surprised if they went 8-8. Maybe that gets them into the playoffs. I don't know if it does though. So,
All right, for our final game, we're going to do Seahawks at Cardinals on Sunday Night Football. This was a really entertaining game between two quarterbacks that are very similar. Obviously, Kyler being younger, but I think they're pretty similar quarterbacks when you look at the play styles. And the Cardinals did come out on top 37-34 in overtime, but Wilson, despite him, I think, still being number one for MVP, I think in both our minds, he did not have a good game last night. He had 3 picks. He threw a pick in overtime, which cost him the game. And even though I still think the Seahawks are probably the best team in the NFC, the Cardinals are not bad either. They're young. They play with a lot of fire under Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray, and they could rattle off wins left and right. They could also lose games very easily, like they did earlier. They lost 2 straight games earlier this season, but I don't think this division's a runaway as I think we thought it was for the Seahawks. I think if the Cardinals, especially with this win over them, if they can just stay competitive until they play again later in the season, I think this is a pretty interesting race down the stretch.
yeah, I think for me the most interesting part of this game, it is the Cardinals. Like I feel like we know what the Seahawks are. They're going to be competing for the Super Bowl. They're a top 2 or 3 team in the NFC, at worst top 3 probably. Even though Wilson didn't have a great game, I think he threw 3 picks. I mean, he's still probably the best quarterback in the league right now, probably the top MVP vote right now still. The Cardinals are interesting to me. They're 5-2. They probably have a chance to make the playoffs. Looking at their remaining schedule, they play Dolphins, Bills. They play the Seahawks again, then they play the Patriots, and then play the Rams, Giants, Eagles, Niners, and then Rams again. I mean, even if they go 500, they're 3 games above 500, which makes them 11-5. If they go 9-7, which I mean they might, that would be probably like towards the worst case at this point. You're probably still looking at a playoff spot. So I don't know. I don't know what to think. I mean, Murray's young. This is only Kingsbury's 2nd year. Looking at the games they've already played, they beat the Niners by 4. I think the Niners are, they're a legitimate borderline playoff team. They beat Washington by a good amount. They did lose to Detroit. They lost to Carolina, but I think both of those teams might be a little bit better than we expected going into this year. I think the Lions are 3-3, Panthers are 3-4, but both of those teams they've fought so far. They killed the Jets, they killed the Cowboys, and they beat the Seahawks by 3. And do I consider the Cardinals a top 10 team right now? I probably lean towards yes. Murray reminds me a lot of Wilson. I'm sure a lot of people see that. He's faster. He's probably shorter. I don't know that he has the same accuracy right now, but potentially that he could get up there. Kingsbury looks like an awesome coach, especially for Murray right now. I think in a few years, this division could be the Cardinals for a long time.
Yeah, I think Murray and Kingsbury are going to be a very entertaining duo. I think they're probably going to be together for the next 10, 15 years, assuming everything goes right. If you play out those careers, 10, 20 times, I think their best case scenario is that they're together for those 10, 15 years, and hopefully with a Super Bowl, if not 2, 3. Because I think Murray's just that good. I think he's, like we were saying, I think he's Wilson, but I think he has the football, like the throwing, the speed, his accuracy is getting better, but he has his arm and he has his speed, and I think he's getting better with the awareness. Wilson, when he first came in, he was so good with extending plays using his legs, but he's really become the best quarterback in the league over the last couple years after he's just, had more experience and be able to work on his mechanics and work on his arm. And I think Kyler already has that down. I think he just needs the experience now. So I think they do make the playoffs this year. If it's not in as the division winner, I think it's most likely as a wild card. Which is exactly what Wilson did. I'm pretty sure he made the playoffs his second year in the league, right? Or was that his first year? I want to say he made the playoffs because they beat the formerly Washington Redskins, now Washington football team. He beat RG3 in a playoff game and then lost. Yeah. And then the next year they won the Super Bowl. So I think that's I don't know if the Cardinals would win the Super Bowl the next year, but I think if they make the playoffs this year, it'd go a long way for Kyler and for Kingsbury. And I think they have a really good young team around them. So I don't think they're going to go anywhere. So
if the Cardinals won this division, that would be just crazy. Like it's probably the best division in the league right now, and I think it might be by a sizable amount. All four of those teams are like probably playoff caliber. I mean, the Niners just went to the Super Bowl. Seahawks, top team in the NFC right now, probably. And the Rams they just went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago. They're still a pretty good team. And I think most people probably had the Cardinals last in the division going into the year. I know I definitely did. I thought that they were like a promising team, but probably would end up around the neighborhood of 6-10. I definitely was not seeing this. Maybe I probably should have seen a better record than 6-10, but I'm still really just surprised. The fact that Murray's already this good, Kingsbury is also, he's proven to be a good head coach. Obviously, getting D-Hop, I mean, that really helps you out. So, I feel like Bill O'Brien is like basically the assistant GM of this team at this point. But yeah. All right, going to take a quick minute ad break here. I'll be back in a few seconds. All right, back from the ad break here. Going to do a buy or sell segment. Essentially, we list off teams. You decide if you want to buy or sell. If you buy, you trade for assets, potentially. If you sell, that means you're selling your assets for potential picks. So, yeah, let's just get into the first team here. First team is the 49ers. Brandon, do you buy or sell?
I'm kind of in the middle. For the 49ers, like we were just saying, that division is most likely the best division in football. And right now they're in last place behind the Rams, Cardinals, and then Seahawks. So I think it's tough for them. I don't think they can win the division. Can they get a playoff spot? I mean, there's 3 wildcard teams now, so they definitely could. But, I mean, in my eyes, I see the Cardinals as getting one of those spots. I see rather Green Bay or Chicago, whoever doesn't win that division. I think Green Bay will win that division, but one of those teams is going to get it. And then I would say the Saints. So I'm not really sure if the Niners can get that last wild card spot or not. But their team's been ravaged by injury this year, so I don't think they sell. Again, if they buy, it's just small pieces that could just help them in spots where they have a lot of injuries. But I think they just played the year out. If they don't make the playoffs, I wouldn't say they don't care, but I would say that it's there's a reason as to why injuries and then competition of the division. So I think they're looking more towards next year.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm willing to sell, not as in blow the team up, but veterans. If you can trade and get assets for them, I go ahead and do it. I'm looking for. I'm looking into the future here in this team. I'm not looking to necessarily win a Super Bowl this year. The division is so good. I don't know that you make the playoffs. It's not a guarantee. So, what's the point in trading for, last year you got, an Emmanuel Sanders. I don't think I'd trade for a rental type of player. If anything, I'm trying to sell on players like that as the Niners. I think you're probably, because of injuries and because of Jimmy G's drop-off in play, you're probably the worst team in that division. I think I'd probably still rather be the Rams, this year at least, I'd rather be the Rams. I think the Cardinals have definitely played better this year, and the Seahawks are the Seahawks. And I think you just try to build assets, see what you can do for future years, try to stay young. You get Bosa back next year. And the biggest thing is you decide if Jimmy G's your guy or not? I mean, that's a tough question, really. It really is. You have to see how he plays the rest of the year to find that out. Maybe you already know. Maybe that Super Bowl was just it. The second he missed that deep throw to Emmanuel Sanders, like, that's his career. He's just done. I wouldn't even, like, tell you you're wrong if you said that, because you're probably right. I mean, looking at how he's playing now. So, getting into the next team, though, staying in the division here, Los Angeles Rams. And I guess I am probably kind of in the same thing as the 49ers. I'm looking to, invest in the future. I don't know that means I'm willing to, blow the whole team up. I'm not. But if I can trade established veteran players for picks and for younger players, I'm trying to get young. I feel like, you went to the Super Bowl and you've really, so you've signed a lot of players. You've invested in players like Ramsey. And I mean, your draft capital is just kind of non-existent right now. If you could just get more picks, I mean, ideally you'd try to do that, because I don't know that you have a Super Bowl winning team this year. You can get a wild card spot probably and see what you can do, but yeah, I don't know if this is a team that can win the Super Bowl. I guess you have to look at Goff, and I mean, I don't know that you have an option really with Goff, but ideally this team would be talented enough to get to the Super Bowl again. And if Goff is the reason that this team's getting held back, which, I mean, I don't know that it is, but if that's what you think it is, then you've got to probably change it up.
Yeah, I think the Rams are in the same boat as the Niners are, at least for me. I think, like you were saying, for you also. I think in this, I don't really see them getting a wild card spot. I mean, if they get hot and they can rattle off consecutive wins, then maybe. But I think the level of competition in the division, and I'm not exactly sold on the Rams. I just don't think they're as good as maybe other people think they are. So I think, again, I think you just stay in place. You don't really do too much either way, buying or selling. And I think you just hope that you could sneak into the playoffs. And if you can't, then you look for next year. But with Goff at quarterback and McVay at head coach, you're not really gonna blow anything up. So I think they just stay put. All right, now getting into the next team, we have the New England Patriots. For me, I think you sell. I don't know if you blow it up. I don't think you have to do that. But I think guys that you're willing to let go, I think you trade them. For
you trade Gilmore or no? A team calls you right now and offers you a first, a second, and a fourth. The Rams gave up 2 firsts for Ramsey, so you could even argue somebody calls up and offers 2 firsts. In this exercise, I'll say a first, a second, and a fourth. Would you take that or would you not?
Well, yeah, that's tough. I mean, Ramsey got 2 firsts, and he wasn't even under. Well, I mean, he was under contract, but he wanted a new contract, which the Rams gave him. Now, Gilmore is under contract for this year and next year, and then he's going to be a free agent. He's going to be 31 years old. So, coming off Defensive Player of the Year, what was that, first, a second, and a fourth?
We'll just say 2 firsts. You do it for 2 firsts?
2 firsts, yeah. I'm doing that for 2 firsts.
I think I am too.
I don't think there's no way you can't, especially with him. Even though he just won Defensive Player of the Year, he's going to be 30. I just don't know exactly how his play. He's been a good corner for his career, but I don't know if he's going to be Defensive Player of the Year level for these next 2-3 years. So
I think the remainder of his contract will be the remainder of his peak. I think he's got the rest of this year, and I think he's got next year. And would I trade 2 firsts for essentially that amount of time of him playing? And I probably do. I don't like to admit that, but I think if you just have to look at what the Pats are right now, I'm not sold on blowing it all up. I mean, I guess Gilmore that would be blowing it up. I don't know that it is. If you get 2 firsts for it, I mean, I don't know that I count that as blowing it up, but I mean, you have to look at trading Gilmore, especially if it's 2 firsts. I probably pull the trigger on it. I think Belichick has always been you'd rather trade someone a year too early than a year too late. if you look to trade Gilmore next year, not only will he be on the last year of his contract, but he might even be worse. And if he's not the top corner in the league, then you're not going to get 2 firsts for him. You may not even get 1 first for him. So I think you try to look to capitalize on Gilmore right now, especially if somebody like Bill would know better than me, but if you kind of just realize like this team's not going anywhere, like yeah, trade him. I'd trade Gilmore. I'd probably trade. I mean, I would definitely trade a player like Edelman. I don't think anyone's dying to trade for Edelman right now. He just looks so bad. I'm trading a running back like Sonny Michel. I'm willing to trade anybody right now, really. Like a Devin McCourty type. I don't think anybody trades for him because I think the McCourty brothers want to play together, and if they didn't play together, they'd probably retire. Which is why Jason McCourty has gotten like a starting role, even though he's like J.C. Jackson is like just way better. It's stupid, but yeah, I mean, I definitely trade Gilmore. Going to the NFC North, a team that has looked better than what people thought this year, the Chicago Bears. Buy or sell?
I'm buying if I'm the Bears. They're 5-1. I'm not sure exactly how good they are or what their ceiling is, but I think you have to go for it this year because obviously Foles isn't going to be your quarterback for the future. Neither is Trubisky. So unless you're planning on getting a quarterback in the draft, and maybe in the first round, I don't know exactly what your plan is for the future. So I think you have to go for it this year because you're just not sure what your future is going to be. Because like you could end up, let's say they end up like 10-6 or 9-7. They could possibly get into the playoffs. I think they probably do get in the playoffs unless they just really struggle down the stretch. But like you're not gonna have a top. I mean, it's in the NFL. You don't really need a top pick in order to get a good player because there's just so many players. But if you want to get a quarterback like the guy from BYU, he's looked pretty good so far this season. So and he's definitely gonna be there. Obviously, Lawrence and Fields are most likely going to be the first 2 quarterbacks taken. So if you want to go for a guy like that, you can. Because you definitely still have a good team around him if you want to draft him. But I think you definitely buy for the remainder of this year.
I think I lean towards selling. I don't, if I'm the GM of this team, I just don't think that this team wins a Super Bowl. I mean, obviously, if you get into the playoffs, like, who knows, you're always going to have a chance. But if somebody calls me and offers a second for Allen Robinson, one, I don't even know if I'm getting him back for the rest of, like, after this year. So, I'd probably trade that second. I'm going to say I don't trust Foles. That probably sounds stupid because he's won a Super Bowl before. But it's nonetheless, I just don't trust him. I don't think the offense is lethal enough. And I don't think the defense is dominant enough to bring them to a Super Bowl. I don't think this is like a 2015 Broncos defense. I don't think it's anywhere close to that. So, I mean, somebody like an Allen Robinson and somebody like I'd be willing to try to capitalize on in the trade market if I'm Chicago. I think you have to just try to figure out what you're doing for quarterback in the future. If you're really sold on Foles for this year, then, like, I guess you kind of just maybe even try to find somebody in the trade market to trade for, but I don't know how you could be. Is this team going to go to Seattle and beat Seattle? I just don't see it. Is this team, I just don't see how Foles could outperform Russell Wilson. And I get that the Bears' defense is significantly better than the Seahawks, but with that being said, I still don't see it. I don't think this team beats Green Bay. I don't think this team beats Tampa, even though they beat Tampa already, but...
How do you think if Tampa has to play Chicago in the playoffs and it's Brady versus Foles? How scared are you?
More scared than, like, I should be. Or, like, more scared than I should be. Like, I would be pretty nervous because the Tampa team already lost to this Chicago team in a pretty bad fashion in primetime. Brady clearly hasn't ever played well against Foles, for whatever that means, in the Super Bowl. And then, that last week Tampa-Chicago played. I'd be pretty nervous. Like I'd rather play like a Los Angeles Rams probably. Even though right now, if you ask me what is the better team, I think I'd still go Rams. So I'd be scared, but I still don't think that means anything. Like, this team's not going to be able to go on the road to Tampa, beat Tampa, then go on the road and beat Seattle. Like, there's just no way. And then go to the Super Bowl and beat Kansas City. Like, that's the toughest, like, road of all time. And they're just like, that's what they'd have to go through, basically. So that's just not happening.
Yeah, they're not going to be able to do any of that. But I think you still buy. You say sell, I say buy. So we're at a little disagreement there. But our next team is the Indianapolis Colts. I'm not really sure what to think of the Colts.
Sell.
I mean,
Sell. They're so
yeah,
bad.
no, I think you definitely sell. I don't think you buy, but I mean, I think the Titans are obviously going to win that division. But the Colts are 4-2 right now. I think they could probably get a wild card spot. I think I would say three teams in the AFC North make the playoffs, in Browns, Ravens, Steelers.
I think they're on the outside looking in, though.
I don't think unless the Patriots turn it around, I don't think they're making the playoffs.
Probably not.
I don't think the Dolphins are gonna, especially with Tua, which we didn't address, but
I still think they're probably on the outside looking in. Like, maybe they're, I mean, they're like a likely team to potentially get that third spot, but that's the best case probably for them. Even then, I still don't think. I think there are a lot of teams that are probably better, even though they might not have as good of a record as 4-2. I still trust the Pats down the stretch more. I don't know that I like the Dolphins more, but I think the Dolphins and the Colts are on a pretty even level. I guess we haven't seen Tua yet. If Tua plays like Herbert or like Burrow or better, then they're probably better than the Colts. I mean, the Raiders, I don't know, are they done? Or, like, I mean, I don't know. Like, that's a genuine question. Like,
well, the Raiders are on our list. Do you want to talk Raiders right now?
Well, I'm just, in terms of the playoff picture, like, I mean, it's important to the Colts.
Yeah, I think the Raiders is the other team. I think if you think the Raiders can get 9 wins, then right now they're 3-3, and they did beat Kansas City, so they did. It's not like they beat bad teams. I mean, they just got killed by the Bucs, but I don't really trust the Raiders going 9-7. I don't really think they're going to win 6 games the rest of the way.
Yeah, maybe not.
So I don't really trust the Colts either, but I think in that division, you have the Jags and the Texans. I don't know. I just don't see how they couldn't get to 9 wins, especially with they only need 5 wins. So
that's a fair argument. I just can't bring myself to like this team at all. I just think that they're just not good. Rivers is just not good. Their offense isn't great. I mean, I don't know. Is Hilton like an actual 1 anymore, or was he ever?
He's like a 2.
Yeah,
barely 2. I would say
he's probably barely a 2. The defense is like inconsistent, but probably good. I mean, Darius Leonard, if he plays, like, the defense is obviously great. You've got some veterans in that team, like Justin Houston he's like still good. I don't know. I still don't think that this team is great. The Pats literally are 2-4 and the Colts are 4-2, but I still think I trust the Pats down the stretch more. It's definitely just a biased take, so I'm just gonna whatever on that. Moving on to the next team, though, going to the NFC South, the New Orleans Saints. And as much as I don't want to say it, I'm buying on this team. If I'm the GM, I think you have to. I don't trust Drew Brees. I don't like Brees. I think he's arguably the most overrated quarterback of my lifetime. But, I mean, this is your last year with him. Regardless of what I think, he's still an all-time great. He's proven that he can lead a team to the playoffs and to the Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl, even though that was a long time ago. He's proven that he can. This team is still super talented. Michael Thomas, he hasn't really been here this year so far. You're going to get him back, and hopefully he looks like he was last year, and then you definitely have a chance to go far. I think you need to probably win the division to go far as the Saints, but if it's going to cost me a second or third rounder to trade for that piece that makes my team more complete for this last push with Brees, then I probably do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm buying also. I mean, this is their last year. Again, at least with Brees, unless Winston or someone next year. But yeah, I think I'm not really sure. I mean, Thomas still isn't coming back. They said he's probably not going to play this week. They're coming off a bye, so they said he's probably not even going to play this week, which I'm not exactly sure why he's not playing. I they were saying. I mean, like he was supposed to come back Monday night against the Chargers, but then he fought someone at practice, so the Saints suspended him for that game. But they're still saying he's not going to play this upcoming game. So
Because of injury, or I don't.
they didn't. It seemed like maybe COVID, but he doesn't have it, so I'm not exactly sure.
It says hamstring on ESPN, but I have no idea, honestly.
I mean, maybe he has something. I haven't seen anything with him having an injury, but like yeah, obviously he came back from that ankle sprain, but they said he was healthy from that. So, but once he comes back, Sanders comes back. He was on the COVID list. Kamara's been, I would say Kamara's been the best running back this year, all around, and their defense has always been pretty good. Cam Jordan, Marshawn Lattimore, Demario Davis, and Sean Payton as your head coach. So I don't know if they win the division. I think the Bucks. Again, it's only been 2 weeks of them playing really good football, but I think the Bucks are probably the better team. And they have a matchup coming, I think, in 2 weeks they play against each other.
Yeah.
So that will be a big game because the Saints already beat them. So if the Bucks can beat them, at least they can have a tie in the tiebreaker if it ever comes down to that. But yeah, I think you have to go all in on this year. And
Yeah,
hope
definitely.
And you have to hope that Breeze can somehow lead you to the championship.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, you probably need Michael Thomas for the Bears. You don't need him, but he'd be really nice to have. But yeah, I mean, if he doesn't play against the Bears, that's unfortunate because then he'd be coming back for the first time in a good amount of time. Wouldn't it be literally since week 1?
Yeah, it'd
So,
be like 2
yeah.
months.
Yeah, and he'd be playing the Bucks again, which would be just, I mean, I don't know what to think about that, but yeah, I don't know. I don't love the Saints, but I'm definitely not going to dispute the fact that you have to buy. This is basically your last year. So, moving on to the last team here, the Las Vegas Raiders. I already kind of talked about them briefly. I mean, I'm holding on this team. I still think I want to see more from Carr. I guess since you signed Gruden to a big contract, he's your coach for the future. You have to just trust him. If he likes Carr, you keep him for the future. If he doesn't, then you get rid of him. You try to just draft more. Obviously, it's like a stupid take, but you try to get more young players. Jacobs is obviously great. Ruggs, I mean, I don't know if he's been the best receiver. I don't think he's been the best receiver in this class.
I think CD's been the best receiver, even though he had 0 catches this past week.
Yeah, but I mean, Ruggs has not looked like a bust really yet, which is good, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, I think it just really comes down to Carr here. You can worry about the rest of the roster after that. I just think the rest of this year is dedicated to, does Gruden like Carr? Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this year is really the last year if Carr is going to stay here. Because Gruden, he's on a 10-year contract, and I don't think Carr is the quarterback for the future. So I think they probably move on from him this year, and they have a really good team. I think they have a really good team outside of Carr. With Jacobs, they have a really good offensive line, and they're building up the defense. So they still need help in the secondary, but their defensive line's been pretty good, especially with the young players that they have. So, and then obviously they have Ruggs on the outside. They have Waller at tight end. They still probably need another skill position player, but I think they probably end this year maybe 8-8, 7-9. And at best 9-7, and I think you most likely move on from Carr. If you don't, you probably have to get a quarterback then, whether through free agent draft, maybe a trade. You have to get at least a bridge quarterback, something to get to the next quarterback. You would hope to be the future quarterback, but
I don't know that the Raiders have done a good job in setting this whole future thing up. If you want to, you've taken a while to find out if Carr's your guy. But with that, you'd also think you'd have a succession plan set up, like how the Packers are maybe going to have it, minus the fact that Aaron Rodgers is old. But, ideally you'd have a guy where if Carr is not your guy, you can get rid of him and your next guy is ready to go. And if Carr is your guy, then you've essentially built up this trade piece who, teams might not have been able to see, but if you've been pushing this whole narrative that he's your next guy, just like the Pats did with Jimmy G, all you need is a few weeks of good, solid performance, and then there you go. He's worth like a lot, and I just think that's the play if you're an NFL team, like 99% of the time, because you almost can't have a bad outcome with it. The Raiders just didn't really do that. So if they let Carr go, they're just going to have to like draft a quarterback. I think that's like your only option. So I don't think there's going to be any free agent quarterbacks next year that are like noteworthy.
I mean, technically Dak.
Well,
I don't think he's actually going to be a free agent. So
yeah. I mean, Dak, but you'd assume he'd go back to the Cowboys, I guess. At this point, you'd probably assume that. Not on like a 5-year, $400 billion deal, but on whatever, 2 years, 40 mil, 2 years, 45.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't think the Raiders have handled the Carr situation well, but I mean, hopefully it works out for him.
so I think we're wrapping this episode up. Are there any final thoughts you want to say about this episode or maybe future episodes?
Not really. So we will be back on Fridays. So Wednesdays and Fridays, we're going to be on the radio, not to mention podcast form. So yeah, look to that. Next episode, we're probably going to talk about the week 8, get it more into next week, and get some predictions. And also going to be getting into the trade deadline. Trade deadline in like all sports is like my favorite time of the year. Trade deadline and off season, I just think speculating about like off season moves is like pretty interesting. Obviously it's not the same as like being able to like watch games, but speculating trades, like looking at like Bleacher Report articles and stuff like that is just something that's always been pretty entertaining. So look forward to that. I think that about wraps it up, right?